Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Commander Score Studio. Welcome to the show. So this just keeps happening, and I feel like this is going to be a trend, but more leaks are coming out. It's basically like super early spoiler season, which is kind of like last year when Wizards was like, hey, spoiler season. Like, oh, okay, cool. And then that was done. It was like 2 days later, hey, spoiler season. Like, wait, did you need to do that after that? To spoiler season. Right now, no, it is... it's leak season, and again, I do want to say, for the millionth time with all these, take everything I say with a grain of salt. Take these images with a grain of salt, because they could be fake. Chances are that they're not fake. 99.9% chance, in my opinion, that they're not fake. This would take an absurd amount of resources, effort, all for an internet prank, which, you know, you can't put past people for actually doing, but this seems like it's real and just a mistake on Wizards' part. With all that said, though, let's jump into them. Now, if I remember to edit this correctly, Future Mitch, who's going to be editing this, hi, this is Future Mitch. Please edit this properly and put all the images later. Oh, okay. Oh, okay, I'll do that. Anyways, that was my discussion with Future Mitch, and hopefully Future Mitch does that properly. Looking at you right now. Anyways, I'm going to put the images that actually showed up on Reddit later because, yeah, I made the custom versions of them because they're easier to discuss. Some of them are grainy, some of them are super tiny, but the words on them are very legible. And essentially, yeah, I just put the art in the actual custom card that I typed out, so it's the exact same. When I say custom, I just mean that, like, thank you, MTG.design, for existing. I just typed in the exact words that were on the card on these. So there you go. That being said, I might have misspelled something. Anyways, a 3/4 Fox Advisor with lifelink, Pearl Ear Imperial Advisor for 1 white. Enchantment spells you cast have affinity for auras, meaning they cost 1 less cast for each aura you control. Whenever you cast an aura spell that targets a modified permanent you control, draw a card. As a reminder, equipment, auras you control, encounters are modifications. This is spicy. If this would have existed, like when I started playing Commander, because I think my second Commander deck I ever built might have been Shram. It might have been my third. Maybe Joda was second. Regardless, SRAM was one of my first commanders of all time, and many players out there build SRAM with, you know, equipment, which is great and fun. I like to build it with auras, though, and I thought that was a really fun way to do it. And, yeah, this is probably strictly better. I mean, SRAM is lower to the ground, obviously. That being said, this is still 3 minutes, which is pretty low. 3/4 lifelink is nice. What matters with this, though, is that, again, the more auras you get to play, the cheaper, well, your auras become, and also just like any other enchantments that you want to throw out too. So this is pretty powerful. I guess the difference between this and Shram is like Shram gives you card draw when you're casting any auras. You have to be actually casting auras that target modified permanents you control. Again, modified permanent, not just creatures, so that could, you know, apply to other things too. Most of the time it's going to be creatures. But still, if you get 1 aura on something and then you just play more auras on top of it, you are going to be drawing more and more and more and more cards. So keep that in mind. Yeah, the amount of card draw on this can be absurd. The amount of cost reduction can be absurd too. So essentially, all your auras are going to end up costing probably like just a single white mana is probably what's going to end up happening. And actually your enchantments as well. Yeah, probably like 1 or 2 pips essentially when it comes to white mana. Yeah, this can be very powerful. I mean, it is pretty specific again. It is mono white. It is, you know, you want to build heavily into auras. So it's not necessarily the most powerful thing, but giving you, again, ramp. I mean, not ramp, but reduction, which can be more powerful than ramp. And also absurd card advantage. Yeah, it can be a very powerful thing with a low-to-the-ground commander. You can do some pretty crazy things with this. I mean, like Sigil the Empty Throne, getting that out for 2 mana, and then just playing aura. It sounds like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, right? Aura. No, okay, anyways. Yeah, that's really, really powerful. Like, basically pay 1 mana to, you know, draw a card and also make a 4/4 Flying Angel. That's just one example of something crazy you can do. Also, what's that one? Gosh, let me know in the comments below. I'm messing up on this one right now. Overwhelming Splendor. There we go. I got it. I was going to say, like, the enchant player, you know, curse or whatever that makes all their creatures into 1/1s. Yeah. Also, some, like, giant, disgusting enchantments that cost so much mana. You can just play for, again, 1 or 2 mana, which is just absolutely gross. So, yeah, again, you want to, like, splash in some enchantments into this deck as well. Not just all auras, most likely. A pretty powerful, pretty interesting commander. Moving on. Null Drifter. Oh, my goodness. You see what they did there? Muldrifter, get it? But null, because it's an Eldrazi. 4/4 Eldrazi Elemental. Oh, I made a mistake right here. It is not legendary. There you go. Okay. We knew there was going to be a mistake at some point. I already caught it right there, okay? So comment below on how I messed up right there, but I'm not going back right now. We're going to keep going. It is not legendary. It'd be really funny if it was, though. Eldrazi Elemental for 7 mana. When you cast this spell, draw 2 cards. Specifically, cast this spell. Flying Annihilator 1. Also evoke for 2 in a blue. When you cast it for its evoke cost, again, if you do, you sacrifice when it enters the battlefield. So this one is obviously reminiscent of Muldrifter, which is the exact same thing, but not an Eldrazi, also not legendary. This one's not legendary either. But that is when it ETBs, you draw 2 cards. It also doesn't have Annihilator 1. It also costs, what, 4 in a blue instead, essentially? So this one, if you want to get it out for 7 mana, you're still drawing 2 cards. It's 7 mana, it's still a lot, but you are getting a 4/4 flyer with Annihilator 1. So that's actually really good. Yeah, if you just want to evoke it, it's basically the exact same thing as Muldrifter, though obviously, like, it's not as abusable as Muldrifter overall because, again, it is a cast trigger. It is not an ETB, which I guess is technically better in one case where it's like, okay, it can be you're getting it even if it's countered, I should say. You draw the 2 cards, even if someone's like, I counter that. It's still, you draw the 2 cards because it's a cast trigger. Whereas Muldrifter is an ETB, so like if you counter that, they don't draw because it's an ETB. That being said, ETBs are much more easily usable and abusable. You could still like bounce this back to your hand and replay it. That being said, Muldrifter's like, okay, I cast a simple blink spell. Draw 2 cards. I have this other blink effect. I draw 2 cards. You're much more easily usable and usable, but that being said, like, can this fit an Eldrazi deck? Absolutely. An Elemental deck? Sure, as well. One that you can, utilize that Annihilator. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting card. It's a really cool flashback to that Muldrifter, and I don't think it's going to see anywhere near as much play again because it's not as easily usable and usable in ETB decks, and that's typically where you see Muldrifter played. That being said, it's spicy. Next up, Volatile Stormdrake, a 3/2 Drake that costs 1 and a blue. Flying Hexproof from activating triggered abilities. That's pretty interesting. It's very specific Hexproof. Again, seems like either this day they're just chucking Ward on everything, which I think I saw somewhere someone say that Gavin recently said they're going to like tone down the amount of Ward, which is probably needed and good. Yeah, but they are also doing things like this where it's like, okay, we have Hexproof, which again is much better when it comes to like perfect protection from things, but they're making it imperfect by making it specific by saying from activated and triggered abilities. So like, you can't target this with those things, but you can still target with, like, a spell, which is, yeah, usually what you're going to be targeting things with. That being said, enters the battlefield, exchange control of it and target creature to opponent controls. If you do, you get 4 energy, then sacrifice that creature unless you pay an amount of energy equal to its mana value. This is very reminiscent of, and I'm pretty sure the name of it is, what, Gilded Drake? Is that it, essentially? It's basically the exact same thing, but without that, like, hexproof, and also, like, it just swaps no matter what. That is a card that I believe sees a lot of CDH play. It's a very expensive old card. I think it's in the Urza's block, I think, and also it's on the reserve list. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong on both of those things. But it's basically the exact same thing. That might be a 3/3 instead of a 3/2, maybe. I don't know. Anyways. This is a pretty cool effect, though, being able to at the very least, you are, like, if you don't have enough energy to, like, steal, like, an opponent's best creature, you can still, like, have basically a 2-mana removal spell. You give them, like, a 3/2 flyer, though, but it's kind of like Swan Song in that way, but, like, afterwards, I guess. That also has Hexproof from activating triggered abilities. Okay. That being said, yeah, if it is a low-to-the-ground enough creature where it's 4 mana value or less, which is... yeah, decent, like a middle-of-the-road creature. There's a decent amount of, like, powerful creatures out there that can meet that, and also, like, a decent amount of commanders out there that are quite powerful that can meet that. Like, think about just stealing someone's, like, Ishin and being like, okay, cool, I have your Ishin now. Have fun. And then they come after you. But, yeah, being able to steal, again, 4 or less mana value, or, again, if you happen to be playing an energy deck, which might be getting more powerful or might be getting more popular these days, I mean, getting more support, yeah, then obviously that would fit in that too. It's an interesting card. Again, is it going to see anywhere near as much play as Gilded Drake? Is it like the same as Gilded Drake? No. But is it quite spicy? Absolutely. Moving on. Flare of Denial. An instant for 3 mana in blue with some very grainy artwork. You may sacrifice a non-token blue creature on pay spell's mana cost, counter target spell. Let me just put aside really quick my opinion on free counter spells and just evaluate the card, and then eventually I'll tell you my opinion on those, which you might already know. Yeah, it is specific in what it does, right? You have to sacrifice. I'm glad that they specify, first up, non-token, secondly, blue. Like, it's not just like, sacrifice a creature. Because if so, you'd be like, oh, okay, I've got this like little servo in play. Cool, sacrifice that. I'll counter your spell. No, you can't sacrifice a servo. You can't sacrifice, say, like a Merfolk token or like a Drake token. You have to actually commit a little bit to this by sacrificing an actual non-token blue creature. So, yes, there is a little bit of commitment to there. I think this is going to be more popular, more powerful in other formats, personally. I mean, it probably could see some Siege play, obviously. But when it comes to, like, just casual Commander, how much play is this going to see? I don't know if it's going to see all that much. It's definitely not, like, Fierce Guardianship level in Commander, in my opinion. Even though it can counter any spell instead of just non-creature, typically that distinction doesn't matter as much as just, like, the distinction of, like, this being more difficult to play in Commander, typically, than Fierce Guardianship, which is just like, do you have your Commander in play? Cool, you get it for free. This is more so, like, yeah, if you're playing, like, I guess, like, a deck that has a bunch of blue creatures that you are okay with sacrificing, obviously, that'd be good. Or just, like, if you're playing in a mono blue deck, sure. Like, you can ensure that you have a blue creature. If you're playing with a commander that you actually, like, maybe want to sacrifice or don't care about having around all that much, sure. Like, that's fine. But, like, for most blue decks out there, or for most decks that have blue, like, can you, like, count on having that blue creature in play that you're okay with sacrificing? And yeah, there's going to be some scenarios where, like, I've got, like, a really good blue creature in play, and I don't want to sacrifice it, but, like, I'm tapped out, and that is a game-ending play over there that I need to stop. Yeah, you're going to still do that. At worst, it's a cancel, though. Like, 3 mana, counterspell, not that great. So, like, again, I think high-end play, yeah, I can definitely see play. Low-end play, casual, I don't think it's going to see all that much play. I could be wrong. I've been very wrong with the past on cards before, but yeah, that's just my gut feeling on this. Next up, Echoes of Eternity. A Kindred Enchantment Eldrazi for 6 mana and colorless. 3 colors. So when I guess I do typically, like, you know, sidestep what I'm saying. Like, you know, I usually say, like, oh, it's like a 2 in Jund colors or whatever, but I guess I need to be specific in this because, like, colors is going to be hard for most decks to ever cast unless you're playing in a colorless deck, because that is pretty specific. And you usually don't have enough utility lands, typically, unless you're maybe in a monocolor deck with, like, a ton of utility lands that just have for colorless. Typically, you're not going to be able to actually just, like, put this in, like, a 3-color deck and ever get it out. That being said, if a triggered ability of a color spell or you control or another colorless permanent you control triggers, that ability triggers additional time. That's incredibly powerful. Again, this is the year of, like, Wandering Throne things. We got, like, Wandering Throne, Annie joins up. Like, a lot of things are just like, double it. Goodness gracious with the triggered abilities. I mean, a good thing this is specific, but still. On top of that, whenever you cast a color spell, copy it. You just target with a copy. This, to me, is reminiscent of, oh, gosh, Forsaken Monument. Is that the one that costs 5? And it's, like, all of these, like, giant colorless benefits, essentially. But because it's colorless, it's very specific. Like, yeah, we can throw that in a 5-mana, you know, artifact, essentially. This one is, well, typically you don't see a lot of colorless enchantments, I don't think. So that's pretty cool. But, yeah, this is definitely like, hey, do you have an Eldrazi deck? Cool. Put this in there. That is very much that. Because there are a lot of triggered abilities, and obviously on, like the big Eldrazi. And also, like, copying, like, obviously the Ledger Eldrazi is not going to help you out that much. I guess unless you have, like, what's the Mirror one or whatever? Mirror World? Not Mirror World. Whatever one lets you just have Mirror Gallery? Is that the one? Or, like, Legend Rule doesn't apply? Then sure. Yeah, but, I mean, most of the time, though, you're just playing non-legendary things anyways, and you just copy those and have just, like, giant things. Even if you're just playing, like, artifacts, so you're just playing, like, a Soul Ring. Cool, I get 2 Soul Rings now instead of 1? Great. So, yeah, I'm sure there's going to be, I mean, again, this is, like, mostly for Eldrazi Tribal, I would say, like, also just, I mean, if you're playing, like, an artifact-centric deck, if you're playing, like, a Karn deck, or, like, a mono-blue, like, artifacts could utilize this, too. As long as you can, again, ensure that you're going to have enough colorless to actually play this. Yeah, it's a pretty spicy card. It's very, very powerful. Probably going to be pretty expensive because Eldrazi Tribal is very, very popular. And, spoiler alert, I guess, again, with all these, it's like, spoiler alert, leak alert, and again, take everything I say with a grain of salt. But if you see my previous episode where I talked about the new Ulalek, did I get the name right? Is it like Ulamog plus Kozilek combined? I don't even know. Fused Atrocity or whatever it is. If that one is a real card as well, then that means that there's going to be 5-color Eldrazi Tribal, which is pretty spicy and crazy. And if that's the case, yeah, I'm sure there's a decent amount of, like, mana fixing that's going to be in that, or at least, like, you would build into the deck, like, a lot of the ability to fix for colorless as well, because of basically what that commander does too. So you would be able to play this as well, most likely, even though it is kind of it's weird being, like, so restrictive, even though it's, like, no colors, but it's, like, really restrictive because fixing for no color is pretty difficult compared to like, oh, like I played a rampant growth, like I'll get a basic. I guess typically you could have like wasted the deck too, but like you usually don't have that many. Anyways, interesting. Moving on. Razorfield Ripper, a 2/2 equipment rhino. And actually I want to mention, I believe that what I got out of this was 2/2, but like it's hard to read that part down at the bottom right, so that could be a different amount. So check me in the comments if I'm wrong on that, or please excuse me if that is incorrect when the actual, card is released. Again, I always say this too, like Wizards does not ever confirm leaks to my knowledge. Like they just don't. They just pretend that the leaks didn't happen, and then when spoiler season happens, they just like first day like, look at all these cards we're showing off that just happened to be leaked before, but we won't mention that. Look at all these cards we're showing off that you've never seen before, but you have. Yeah, so I believe if I read this one right, you can see like the top of the numbers. I think it's a 2/2. We shall see. Equipment Rhino for 3 mana and white. Whenever it or equipped creature attacks, you get energy. Then it gets +X until after turn, X the amount of energy you have. Reconfigure, pay 2 or 3 energy. So this, again, with Reconfigure, it's basically like this is an equipment and a creature. If you attach it to another creature, it is just an equipment. So yeah, that's a pretty cool effect. That is, obviously, this doesn't work well just for like every single kind of deck out there. If you have an energy deck, absolutely. I mean, like you could just have like 10 energy pretty easily, and like this could just hit for a ton on its own, or help something else hit for a ton, like your commander, just by keeping your energy around. That being said, like, if you just throw this in an equipment deck, you're like, all right, over time it will grow. It's like, okay, I swing the first time. Extra ++1. Okay, that wasn't really that good. Okay, I swing the second time. +2/+2. Okay, better, but still not all that great. But yeah, if you have, like, proliferate type effects to get more and more energy, or again, if you have ways to make a ton of energy, if you have an energy deck, obviously it can be utilized. Otherwise, probably not. Next up, Thief of Existence, a 3/4 Eldrazi with the Void, which I know like that there are definitely some like more things these days. Like I guess that, new enchantment or whatever can work with Devoid, right? Because the card has no color. It's colorless technically. But like Devoid is just one of those like mechanics or keywords that just like seems entirely useless and weird. Anyways, for 1, colorless and a green, when you cast a spell, exile up to 1 target non-creature, non-land, permanent, and opponent controls a mana value 4 or less. If you do, Thief of Existence gains. When this creature leaves the battlefield, target opponent draws a card. Actually, I want to clarify this. I was asked yesterday about, because again, we had that like the 5-color Eldrazi, whatever, that also had Devoid. Spoiler alert, go check out that episode. Someone was like, well, wouldn't it just be a colorless commander then? No, because color identity is determined by, again, the normal factors of color identity. Just because the card says Devoid doesn't mean that it then has no color identity, essentially. That's my understanding, and again, that's why you can't utilize like this in your typically, or at least at this point, typically before the new thing comes out, Eldrazi tribal decks, which are, like based around like Kozilek, which is like colorless commander. You couldn't utilize this in a colorless deck because it is, yes, colorless when it's in play, I guess, but like when it's, being used for a deck, you have to actually consider like the green pip there. Regardless, did I even say this one? Here we go. When you cast spells up to 1 target non-creature, non-land, permanent, opponent controls with mana value 4 or less. If you do, it gains when this creature leaves the battlefield. Target opponent draws a card. This one I think is going to be, it's going to be an Eldrazi tribal, most likely. It is one that's probably better in like other formats-ish, but it is something that's still not bad. Obviously, in Commander, it is good removal. It is something for like mid-level or lower, removal, essentially at mana value 4 or less. That being said, the way that this is worded is really interesting because obviously in like a one-on-one format, you're giving that opponent the card. It's like, okay, I took something away from you, and if you deal with this, I give it back to you. I give not it back to you, but I give you a card to replace it. In Commander, it's like, okay, I took something away from that player, and then I made a deal with that player to give them the card when this gets dealt with. So that player's just down something, that player's up something, and I politicked to get a benefit from giving that player the card. So, yeah, it's pretty interesting in that way. Yeah, definitely Eldrazi Tribal will be utilizing this one. Again, it is a cast trigger. Keep in mind, it is not, luckily, in my opinion, a ETB that you could just use and abuse quite easily. Next up, Necro Dominance. Did your bingo board have Necropotence comes back in a different way? No, mine didn't. Did yours? Anyways, a legendary enchantment for black. Skip your draw step. Beginning of your end step, you may pay any amount of life if you do draw that many cards. Your maximum hand size is 5. If a card or token to be put in your graveyard from anywhere, exile instead. Necropotence, this is not. That being said, this is still incredibly powerful and very spicy. Again, skip your draw step. I think it's the exact same thing as Necropotence, essentially, right? Where basically skip your draw step. At any point, you can like pay 1 life and like exile a card that you then get your end step. Is that basically what it is? I can't remember. I don't play Necropotence. It's not budget friendly. That being said, I don't believe Necropotence reduces your hand size down to 5. So changing your hand size down to 5 is obviously a negative going down 2 cards. So yeah, you can like pay any amount of life on your end step and say like, okay, yeah, I'll draw, 8 cards, whatever it is. You're still going to be going down to 5 at the end of the day because you still have to go to your, discard phase essentially. That being said, you also lose out on anything going to your graveyard permanently. Again, whether that's discarded from your hand, whether that's, from the battlefield, whatever it is, again, a card or, says, there's a mistake right there too. If a card or token, not of token, my apologies for the mistype right there. If a card or token, we put in your graveyard from anywhere, again, I always find that to be kind of weird just in like them be like, okay, like, what was it, Descend? Like, okay, yeah, when a permanent card hits your graveyard. And it's like, okay, well, I have this token here, which is both a permanent and a physical card that I'm holding, but it's not a card because it's a token. What? Okay. I think it could have been a bit more clear, in the way that they all did this thing, but that's fine. Okay, both cards and tokens, so just non-token and token permanents, all hit the graveyard and go away, or don't hit the graveyard again. So it gets rid of like any of your, death triggers, that kind of stuff too, so keep that in mind. That being said, yeah, a crazy good draw effect essentially in a deck that can utilize this. I mean, those pips are a bit aggressive, right? At black, but yeah, if you're in mono black, you love that for like Grey Merchant of Asphalt. You're like, cool, pips. Or like a 2-color deck. But yeah, if your deck plays Necropotence, you probably want to consider this one. Crazy. Okay, and then finally, out of all the new cards, again, new leaks, not officially official cards, we have Shill Gengar? Gengar, the Pokemon, evolves from Shill Ghastly and Shill Haunter. Sire of Famine. I'm going to just gonna get made fun of a lot if I misspelled that, and it's not Shill Gengar, but there we go. Shill Gengar, evolving from Shill Haunter. Sire of Famine, a 6/6 Elder Demon with flying for 5 mana. It just seems like lately, like, hey, we had like Desecration Demon years and years and years ago when I got back into Magic, and it's like, okay, a 6/6 for 4, but there's like a slight downside with flying. And now it's just like, no, you get a 6/6 for 5 with flying. Look, you paid an extra mana instead of any kind of a downside, you just get massive upside. It's like, what? When do we get to this? When is black like the new green? Apparently it is. I mean, because green just going so crazy and just like how big their creatures are for their cost and what they do. Black's like, okay, I'm trying to keep up a little bit, I guess. Sacrifice another creature, create a blood token. Keep in mind that is a free sacrifice outlet right there. We love free sacrifice outlets in Magic, especially Aristocrat style decks. This can fit right into them. On top of that, if you sacrifice an angel this way, as you see in the art, apparently just this demon is sitting on a throne of angels. Gross. If sacrifice angel this way, create a number of blood tokens equal to its toughness instead. Pay Orzhov, 3 Orzhov basically. Sacrifice 6 blood tokens. Return each creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it. Those creatures are vampires and other types. I believe finality counters are, and correct me in the comments if I'm wrong on that. Basically, if they would die, exile them. I can't remember if it's like if it would die or if it would would leave the battlefield. I think it's just die. I should have double checked this, but if it is just die, blink those creatures and they don't have them anymore. If it is leave the battlefield, then don't blink the creatures because they're gone forever. Basically, this is trying to just make it so you can't just like pay 3 mana, sacrifice 6 blood tokens, bring all your creatures back out, sacrifice all those creatures for aristocrat value, do it again and again, rinse and repeat. Yeah, some easy combos could be had from that. Yeah, you just need like a Phyrexian Altar, and then you'd also need just like a way to make just like one giant angel in there essentially, and then there you go. You'd get there. Yeah, I think the finality counter is probably needed. That being said, there's ways around that. Obviously, a pretty powerful effect. I can see this one being pretty popular, being like kind of like a. You definitely could go like Angel Tribal with this at the helm, which could be very interesting, and you can make a lot of blood tokens. Blood tokens, again, I believe, correct me in the council if I'm wrong on this. 1-tap sacrifice, discard a card, draw a card. So it is a rummaging effect, not a looting effect, I believe it is that. So it is card selection. So it's still pretty good. Fill up your graveyard with creatures that you don't want to cast but want to like cheat out with this. That's great. Also, some things can be played into with like, like sacrificing artifacts and getting value out of that, or like punching opponents with that too. It's really interesting. Again, like anytime you have like a free sacrifice outlet on a commander though, yeah, Aristocrats is going to have a lot of value with it, especially when you get a benefit again. And a blood token's like an okay benefit. It's not like the best benefit out there, but it's not a bad one. And also, again, being able to utilize those blood tokens and whatever other ways you have to make blood tokens potentially for, just a giant reanimation effect, that is pretty huge. So with this one, I am going to jump into a quick take on it. I'm going to talk about the budget buys and pricier picks that work really well with this. Again, I will have a link in the description below for the cards I'm talking about on this episode. That being said, take everything I say with a grain of salt, even though I'm saying right now. Actually, don't. I mean, I'm giving you like the warning about it, so don't take that with a grain of salt, I guess. But These have not been confirmed to be real. At the end of this episode, if I remember to do so correctly, and I hope I do, future Mitch, edit properly, I will include all the images, of all these cards that were on Reddit so you can determine for yourself if they look legitimate, okay? That being said, I would still, if I were you, ask your playgroup ahead of time, being like, hey, okay, I'm really interested in this brand new commander I just saw. All right, Shill Gengar, which evolves from Shill Haunter and Shill Ghastly. I want to build around this. Are you okay with that? Because it's not actually officially spoiled yet. We don't know if it's actually real. If I go buy cards for this, are you okay with that? If it isn't real, that I can still play with this proxy version that I made? Ask ahead of time before you just do so and then are disappointed if it's not a real card, okay? Please do that. Now, with all that said, let's jump into the budget buys and pricier picks. So first up in the budget buys, getting cards that are less than $1, even within my budget. First up, we've got Court of Grace, an enchantment for 4 mana. Courtly, yes. Come to my court. I will bring you... I was going to say soldiers, it's spirits. Anyways, enters the battlefield to become the Monarch. So already some card advantage there, which is very nice, especially when you have a commander that is evasive. It can potentially get through on your opponents. Beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 white sphere creature with flying. If you're the Monarch, create a 4/4 white angel creature with flying instead. So, if you're the Monarch, yay! Awesome, amazing. You can utilize this to make tokens, which are angels, which are 4/4s. You sacrifice those, and for each one you sacrifice, again, just at a base value. If you have other anthems, so it's great. But a base value, if you're sacrificing those, you're making 4 blood tokens per angel, which is quite nice. On top of just being able to make an angel army, which is very nice too. Otherwise, you can just make, 1/1s, but you can also sacrifice for 1 blood token apiece. Next up, Mere Entity. Yeah, this one is a gimme in this deck, in my opinion. This one can be incredible with this deck. A 1/1 shapeshifter. I built an entire deck around this card. I love it. Changeling for 2 and a white. So again, because it's a changeling, it's every creature type, including angels and other creature types. But angels is the one that matters. Pay X until end of turn. Creature control base power and toughness XX and gain all creature types. Yeah, this is incredible with this commander because all you need to do, again, let's say you have an army of soldiers or whatever. Who cares? They're 1/1s. You pay, say, 6 mana into this and say, okay, all my creatures are now 6/6, everything's including angels. Let's say you have 6 soldiers, whatever it is, sacrifice those soldiers, you just made 36 blood tokens. Yeah, that's going to be fun. And there's plenty of ways to win from there. So, including just activating, your commander's ability to bring things back and whatnot. Anyways, this is an incredible card with this commander. Please do not sleep on it. I love you, Mere Entity. Next up, a regular cohort, a 2/2 shapeshifter with changeling. Again, every creature type for 4 mana, but it brings a buddy, enters the battlefield, make a 2/2 with changeling. So again, this is giving you 2 basically angels. So again, make sure you're considering, yes, angels, but also changelings too, especially again, Mere Entity, which is amazing. Moving on, Emeria Angel. Look, it's got the name Angel in it. Is it Angel? Yes, it is. 3/3 angel with flying for 4 mana. Landfall, whenever a land is battlefield under your control, you may create a 1/1 white bird creature with flying. So, hey, even though you aren't in green, you don't have access to all the amazing, ramp spells, essentially. You got Wayfarer's Bauble, though. There you go. But yes, you don't have so many ways to actually, landfall. But you also have, I guess, fetch land type things as well. Evolving Wilds. So, sure, you can make some birds out of this. But what matters is, again, at a certain point, if you need some blood tokens, sure, sacrifice this. Make it 3 blood tokens. You can also make an army out of this. Sacrifice those birds as well for blood tokens as well if you need that. Next up, though, Angel of the Ruins. An angel that already sees a ton of play, a very good ETB, 5/7 flying, angel for 7 mana, enters battlefield, eggs up to 2 target artifacts and or enchantments, plane cycle away for 2. So early on, if you need a land, go get a land. If not, an amazing ETB, get rid of some things. And also, again, you sacrifice this with your commander, you make 7 blood tokens. Lovely. That is a lot of value to be had there. And again, by sacrificing this, you get it in your graveyard. You can get it back out with your commander with a finality counter on it and get rid of 2 other things as well. This gives you well more than the amount of blood tokens you need to actually activate your commander. Next up, Reassembling Skeleton. Of course, creature fodder is going to be great for this kind of a deck, so keep that in mind. Yeah, a 1/1 Skeleton Warrior for 1 and a black. Pay 1 a black, return from your grave to the battlefield, tapped. Just making a blood token for 2 mana is probably not the best thing in the world, but you're going to have other benefits from sacrificing creatures too. Like Ogre Slumlord. A 3/3 Ogre Rogue for 5 mana that is a big friend to rats. Whenever another non-token creature dies, you may create a 1/1 black rat creature token, rat control Death Touch. Yeah, every single time any creature dies on the board that is non-token, including your opponents, not just yours, including your opponents, you make a 1/1. That you can then freely sacrifice with your commander to make a blood token if you need to. So basically, whenever any creature dies that's non-token, you get a blood token if you want it, which is very nice. Next up, Camber the Plunderer. Speaking of making blood tokens, a 3/4 Vampire Rogue. It partners, but don't worry about that. That's in red. Lifelink. Whenever a creature blood controls dies, you gain life, create a blood token. So again, another way not to create creature tokens, but ways to actually just make blood tokens so you can utilize those in combination with your commander or any other synergies that you might have with those blood tokens. Like, Agent of the Iron Throne. Commander creatures you own have whenever an artifact or creature you control is migrated from the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life. So essentially, again, when you're sacrificing those blood tokens, whether it's with your commander's ability or just by paying 1 and actually sacrificing them for value, cool, you are hitting your opponent. You are draining your opponent's 1 life per blood token, which again can be quite a bit because at a certain point, again, you could just have a glut of blood tokens like I talked about earlier with Mirror Entity. You get them all in play, you find ways to sacrifice them, and there's other ways to sacrifice artifacts too outside of actually just paying to sacrifice your blood tokens. Do so, and then all of a sudden you drain your opponents for a ton. So keep that in mind. Speaking of draining opponents, of course, Graveyard of Asphodel. Gary, this can be an amazing win condition for this kind of a deck. Let's say you've got ways to fill up your graveyard, and we'll talk about that here in a second. Very quickly, you do so. You get a lot of creatures in your graveyard. You get some creatures in play, you sacrifice them, whatever, you make some blood tokens, you pay that mana, you sacrifice those blood tokens, and you reanimate your entire graveyard. Now, at this point, you're like, oh, darn, I get a finality counter on all these. Oh, it doesn't matter because my opponents are gone because I have Gary in my graveyard. 2/4 zombie for 5 mana. Whenever Gary enters the battlefield, each opponent loses X life or X is your devotion to black. You gain life, your life lost this way. Devotion to black. Yeah, you're in a mono. It's not mono black. I just said mono black. It is, again, actually an Orzhov commander deck. That being said, you're probably have a lot of black pips. And when you're getting all those out of your graveyard, essentially, you're like, oh, okay, I drain all my opponents for 20 each. Great. Okay, cool. I just gained 60. You might just win the game on the spot there. So, yeah, it's quite nice. And of course, actually, if you play Gary and then you sacrifice Gary, so like let's say you play Gary, not from your graveyard but from your hand, you play Gary, you get its effect, you sacrifice Gary, you reanimate it with that big effect, cool, you drain again. So yeah, there's definitely some finishing moves you can have with this. Keening Stone is very good in this kind of a deck as well. Artifact for 6, pay 5, tap, target player mills X cards or X number of cards on the player's graveyard. Again, you can fill your graveyard with creatures pretty easily by sacrificing them. Also, your blood tokens help you fill your graveyard too with that rummaging effect. But yes, being able to just say, oh, double my graveyard, double my graveyard, double my graveyard, fill it up with an absurd amount of creatures, and all of a sudden be like, oh, let's just reanimate all of them. Great, it's going to be a lot of fun with that. Next up, I didn't realize that this one was budget friendly. No, actually, Nesting Grounds, pretty huge reprint right there. Land, tap for a colorless, pay 1, tap, move a counter from target permanent control until another target permanent active on sorcery. Being able to move those finality counters around can be quite nice. You're like, okay, my land now has a finality counter on it, but this creature does not. That actually used to have it, so it can stick around permanently then. But now let's go on to the price your picks. Again, cards outside of my budget, but might be within yours. Again, more than $1. Solemnity. Yeah, this card is broken in a lot of ways. I'm not saying it's broken with this, but you can break it with it. Enchantment for 2 and a white. Players can't get counters. Counters can't be put on artifacts, creatures, enchantments, or lands. So because those counters can't be put on your creatures cannot get finality counters on them. Even though your commander's like, here's your finality. Oh, you won't accept. Okay, well, then you don't get one, which is a good thing for us. So yes, being able to say, oh, okay, I just reanimate all my creatures for basically 3 mana and sacrificing, what was it, 5 blood tokens, whatever it is? Yeah, that's easily usable and abusable, because if I have a sacrifice outlet, which is my commander, I can sacrifice all those creatures again, make more blood tokens, and as long as I got the mana to actually pay that 3 Orzhov again, I can bring them back out again. So I get all their ETBs, all their death triggers again and again and again. Very breakable, and yeah, if you just have, like, Phyrexian Altar, you win right there. You win. I mean, if you have, like, ETBs actually winning the game there. Moving on. Maskwood Nexus. Wizards reprint this card. It is such a cool and unique card, and I love it, and it was budget when we started, but Wizards, what are you doing? Maskwood Nexus. An artifact for 4. Creatures you control are every creature type. The same is true for creature spells you control and creature cards you own that are on the battlefield. Pay 3, tap, make a 2/2 shapeshifter token with changeling. Making every single one of your creatures into an angel is very, 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 very good. So do that. Make your creatures into angels. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, cool. Ha, angels everywhere. I guess, oh, I forgot about that one. There's like the picture of the angel with the fountain, and it turns all your creature tokens that you're making into 4/4 angels. That one's good too. I can't remember what it's called. Divine Visitation? That might be it? I don't know. Anyways. Turning creatures into angels is huge because when you're sacrificing now, instead of just getting 1 blood token, you're getting it equal to all their toughness, which is huge. You can also make, 2/2 angels with this basically to sacrifice that too to make 2 blood tokens. Next up, speaking of tokens, in order procession, if I don't mention it, I get yelled at. If an effect would create 1 or more tokens under your control, create twice the many tokens instead. Are you making tokens with your commander? Yes, I am. This is good with it. All the time? Pretty much, yes. That's why it's $50, and it's too easy. It just is. Parallel Lives this. They're just like, Wizards, come on. We don't need more of these. And they're like, here's some more to sell the set. Okay. Anyways, next up, Morality Shift. A crazy cool card. Yeah, this is just spicy. Sorcery for 7 mana and black. Exchange your graveyard and library, then shuffle your library. hey, that's a quick way to just mail yourself, switching your library and your graveyard. Oh, okay. Well, my library and graveyard are switched, and now I have 80 cards in my graveyard. Oh, I activate my commander. I reanimate my graveyard. I win. Yeah, that's probably the scenario that's going to happen. Like I talked about Keating Stone, how quickly you can mill yourself with that. This is like, let's just skip all that and just mill ourselves. So there you go. Next up, Lyra Dawnbringer. Yeah, kind of angel tribal type effects can definitely help out as well. 5/5, legendary creature angel for 5 mana, flying, first strike, lifelink. Other angels you control +1 have lifelink. Very good. Again, if you are going to kind of lean more into like Angel Tribal, and even if you're not, if you have a decent amount of like Angel things or changeling things as well, a little pump can go a long way with this again, especially since your commander cares about, I think it was the toughness, right, of Angels. So keep that in mind. Also, Marionette Master, Wizards reprint it, please. That's a really good card. I like it to be budget-friendly, please. Human Artificer for 6 mana, a 1/3 with Fabricate 3. Here's the thing. You can make 3 servos if you really want to. Don't do that. Typically, you're going to put 3 counters on this to make it into a 4/6. And whenever an artifact you can hold grave from the battlefield, target opponent loses life equal to a Marionette Master's power. Every single time you sacrifice a blood token, you drain an opponent 4. Yeah, that's really good. So yeah, every single time you're sacrificing those artifacts, drain your opponents for a ton. Take your opponents out in absolutely no time. Quite spicy, quite fun for you. But now as this episode is coming to a close, future Mitch, one more reminder. Put those card images that you're looking at right now, Mitch, but you're probably not on the screen. Put those at the end of the episode and just, put some nice background music, I guess, during it too. Just to make sure everyone can see that they're actual images, and I just made the custom cards just so they're easier to discuss because some of them are kind of blurry and obnoxious and taken with a potato phone. But yeah, another reminder that please do not just go out and say, oh, that's definitely a commander. I will buy all the cards I think are going to be good with that commander. Check with your playgroup first if they're okay with you, like, proxying the commander and, again, like, being okay with you completely playing with that commander if that ends up not being the thing. Because, yeah, you don't want to just waste, like, a lot of money on a deck and it ends up being a fake card. Now, again, take everything I say with a grain of salt on this episode when it comes to these cards. Do I believe that these images are legit, that these are actual cards, that there are leaks happening, that these are real cards and they're not fake? I do believe that. I believe like 99.999% chance that these are actually real cards. It would take an absurd amount of effort to actually do this if they weren't. Now, that being said, people have done weirder things. But still, okay, I believe that they're real. That doesn't mean go buy things that work well with them or whatnot, unless your playgroup is okay and you're okay taking that risk, number one, and your playgroup's okay with you saying like, hey, just in case this doesn't work out, are you okay with playing against this proxied commander or whatever? Yeah, then maybe go do that, okay? If you are interested in any of those cards, then check out that card list link in the description below for Shill Gengar, whatever it is. Yeah, it evolves from Haunter and Ghastly. But yeah, make sure you're staying to this channel for even more exciting. Again, at this point, I'm not going to guarantee that there's another leak that comes out between now and, again, spoiler season, which happens at, like, I think the end of May. But it seems like we're going in that direction. So, yeah, make sure you're staying to this channel. And, of course, as always, thanks again, and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.